Here is a detailed breakdown of why low willpower usually makes humans less angelic, not more, and how the nature of angelic will is generally understood in philosophy and theology. 1. The distinction: free will versus willpower. Your argument relies on the idea that people without willpower are closer to a state of not having free will. However, these are distinct mechanics. Free will: this is the ability to conceptualize a choice between good and evil, or A and B. Even a person with zero self-discipline still has free will. They still face the choice, even if they fail to make the right one. Willpower: this is the energy required to execute a choice against resistance. The counter-argument: if a person has no willpower, they do not become angelic. They usually become instinctual or animalistic. Without the will to govern oneself, a human falls victim to biological impulses: hunger, lust, anger, lethargy. In classical philosophy, the angelic or divine part of a human is the intellect and will governing the body. If you remove the will, the body takes over. Therefore, a person with no willpower is arguably furthest from an angel because they are entirely ruled by their physical clay, not their spiritual intent. The nature of angels: no free will versus fixed will. The premise that angels are wedged from us because they lack free will is a common understanding, but classical theology offers a different nuance that complicates your conclusion. In this view, angels do not lack will. They possess perfect will. Human will is wavering. We choose good today, evil tomorrow. We operate in time so we can change our minds. Angelic will is instantaneous and absolute. Because angels live outside of linear time and have perfect knowledge, they make their choice once. Once an angel chooses to align with the divine, they are locked into that choice forever. The result: an angel is not an automaton that cannot choose. It is a being whose will is so powerful and singular that it never wavers. Therefore, a human with low willpower is the exact opposite of an angel. To be angelic would actually require maximum willpower, the total alignment of one's desire with one's actions. 3. The case of the will-less. There is a subset of your question regarding people who truly possess no agency, perhaps due to severe cognitive disability, a vegetative state, or extreme psychological conditioning. Are they more angelic? The argument for yes. If angelic is defined strictly as incapable of sinning, then yes. A person without the cognitive capacity to formulate a malicious intent is innocent. They share the angelic quality of being removed from the specific struggle of moral ambiguity. The argument for no. If angelic is defined as actively choosing the good, then no. A rock cannot sin, but we do not call a rock angelic. We call it an object. Angels are usually depicted as active agents of order, intellect, and power. A human without agency is passive. An angel is active. 4. The wedge is actually potentiality. The real wedge between humans and angels isn't the existence of will, but the flexibility of will. Humans are unique because we are becoming. We are in a state of flux. We can be a sinner at 10 a.m. and a saint at 10:05 a.m. If you take away a human's willpower, you stop them from becoming. 12:25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 2:10. You don't turn them into an angel. You turn them into a passenger in their own life. Summary: while your logic is poetically sound, it falters on the definition of what an angel is. If angels are mindless robots, then yes, a lobotomized human is angelic. But if angels are beings of pure, unwavering intent, then the most angelic human is the one with the most willpower, the saint or the stoic, who desires good and forces their body to comply relentlessly and without hesitation. The idea that the creation of humans, and specifically the granting of autonomy and divine favor to them, was the wedge that caused the war in heaven is a central theme in several traditions. Here is a breakdown of the scholarly and theological viewpoints that support your assertion. 1. The envy of Adam. This is the most direct confirmation of your point. In the Quranic tradition, the specific trigger for the devil's fall is the creation of humans. The narrative: when Allah created Adam, he commanded all the angels to bow down before this new creation. The wedge: the angels were beings of light and total obedience. Adam was made of clay, but was given the knowledge of the names. The rebellion: Iblis refused to bow. His argument was explicitly about status and nature. I am better than him. You created me from fire and created him from clay. 12:25:25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 3:10 The Connection. Iblis could not accept that a being made of dirt who had the will to sin and cause bloodshed should be honored above a being of pure fire and obedience. 2. The scandal of the incarnation. While the standard Sunday school explanation is often just pride, many medieval theologians argued that the specific cause of the angelic rebellion was a preview of human agency and dignity. The theory: before the world was made, God revealed to the angels his plan to become human. The wedge, Lucifer, the highest angel, saw that he, a magnificent spirit, would eventually have to worship God in the form of a lowly human. The rejection: it wasn't just that humans had free will, it was that God dignified that free will so much that he planned to join it. Lucifer felt that spirit should not bow to flesh. This effectively makes the unique nature of humanity the wedge that split the angels. Number 3. The risky creation. In Jewish oral tradition, the angels are often depicted as skeptical of humans, specifically because of free will and the capacity for evil. The debate: when God proposes creating man, the angels are divided. The angels of truth say, "Do not create him, for he will be full of lies." The angels of peace say, "Do not create him, for he will never stop fighting." The outcome: God creates man anyway. The wedge here is that the angels correctly predicted that human free will would lead to chaos, making them resent the creation of such a volatile being. Why free will specifically upsets them? Your intuition that free will is the insult is spot on. 1. Unpredictability. Angels are constant. Humans are volatile. To an angel, a human having free will is like giving a loaded gun to a toddler. It seems reckless of God. 12:25:25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 4102. The image of God. Free will is a specific trait that makes humans like God. Angels are servants, humans are children. The servant became jealous of the child as the child was given the keys to the car. John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost provides perhaps the most detailed and dramatic exploration of exactly what you are talking about: the specific resentment that spiritual beings feel toward humans because of our unique nature and status. Milton portrays the wedge not just as a theological dispute, but as a deep psychological drama about hierarchy, pride, and the specific offense of spirit-serving clay. Here is how Paradise Lost illustrates your point. 1. The insult of spirit-serving flesh. In Milton's universe, the fallen angels are obsessed with hierarchy. They view themselves as ethereal virtues, beings of pure fire, intellect, and spirit. When God creates humans, he doesn't just give them free will. He gives them dominion over the earth and commands the angels to minister to them. This is the ultimate humiliation for Satan. In Book the 4, when Satan first spies on Adam and Eve in the garden, he is struck by their beauty, but also filled with jealous rage. He cannot understand why God would favor these creatures of dust. The sentiment: why should a being of fire watch over a being of dirt? The wedge: it is the dignity given to human free will that offends Satan. If humans were just animals, Satan wouldn't care. But because they are images of God with the power to choose, they are rivals. 2. God's defense of free will. Milton explicitly addresses why God gave humans this dangerous free will that caused so much trouble with the angels. 12:25:25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 5:10 in Book 3. God the Father explains to the Son that he does not want automatons. He does not want the angelic behavior you described earlier. God says of man, "I made him just and right, sufficient to stand, though free to fall." God argues that if he had not given man free will, man would be a mere machine. Not free. What proof could they have given sincere of true allegiance, constant faith, or love? This supports your earlier logic. A being without the will to choose cannot truly love. They can only function. The wedge exists because God valued voluntary love over program function. 3. Satan's free will versus human free will. Milton creates a fascinating parallel between the two. Satan has free will, but he is trapped by his own pride. He famously says, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." His will is strong, but it is locked in a defensive posture. Adam and Eve have free will, but they are naive. The tragedy in Milton is that Adam actually loses his angelic status specifically when he loses his willpower. When Eve eats the apple, Adam faces a choice. He knows she has sinned. He knows he should not join her. but his willpower is overcome by his passion. He eats the fruit not because he wants to rebel like Satan, but because he is fondly overcome with female charm. Result: this confirms your suspicion. When Adam loses his willpower, he falls. He becomes less than the angels, not more. 4. The pet dynamic. There is a scene where Satan looks at Adam and Eve and essentially calls them God's new pets. He implies that God created humans just to spite the angels who left, to show that God can make something out of nothing, and elevate it. 12:25:25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 610 above the something that rebelled. This reinforces your idea of the wedge. Humans are the visible symbol of God's power to grant agency to anyone he pleases, regardless of their origin. Summary of Milton's view in Paradise Lost: the hierarchy is 1. God. 2. Angels, 3 means 4 animals. The wedge is that God blurred the lines between number 2 and number 3. He gave number 3 the privileges of number 2. The angels felt that number 3 should have remained like number 4, without agency. Title: The Kenosis of Agency, Volition, the Angelic Wedge, and the Paradox of the Willless Soul. Abstract: the proposition that human free will constitutes a wedge, or point of contention, between the angelic and human orders is a concept deeply rooted in Abrahamic theology and esoteric tradition. This essay examines the logical corollary of that proposition. If the possession of free will is the source of the schism, does the absence of will elevate a human to an angelic status? By analyzing the ontological structures of St. Thomas Aquinas, the mysticism of Meister Eckhart, and the Islamic tradition of the Fitra, we find that while the surrender of will is a path to holiness, the incapacity of will presents a complex metaphysical problem. The will-less human is not necessarily angelic, but rather represents a unique ontological category, the unfallen animal. 12:25:25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 710i, the ontology of the wedge, why agency offends. To answer whether the removal of will restores angelic status, we must first define the mechanism of the wedge. In the theological narrative of the primum peccatum, the offense taken by the angelic host was not merely that humans existed, but that a being of lower matter was granted the higher faculty of divine agency. The medieval scholastic Duns Scotus argued that the wedge was the hypostatic union, the idea that the infinite would merge with the finite. Free will is the engine of this merger. It is the capacity to say yes or no to the divine. The angelic nature. In Thomistic theology, angels possess eveternal will. They do not experience time linearly as we do. When an angel chooses, it chooses with its entire being, instantly and irrevocably. An angel is its choice. There is no willpower involved because there is no resistance. There is only pure crystallized intent. The human nature, humans possess discursive will. We oscillate, we struggle, we exist in a state of becoming. Therefore, the wedge is the volatility of the human. To the static perfect angel, the human is a chaotic variable. 2. The case for the will-less. Saint, your hypothesis suggests that removing this chaotic variable aligns the human closer to the angel. There is a strong esoteric argument to support this, found in the tradition of kenosis. In Christian mysticism and Sufism, the ultimate spiritual goal is often the annihilation of the will. The mystic seeks to align their will so perfectly with God's that they effectively have no will of their own. The holy fool. In Eastern Orthodoxy, the Eurodevi is a person who acts without regard for social norms, logic, or self-preservation. They often appear to lack willpower or agency, yet they are revered as living closer to the angelic realm because they have bypassed the ego, the seat of rebellious free will. 12:25:25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 810 the argument. If the wedge is the rebellious ego, then a human who lacks the willpower to form an ego is, by default, incapable of rebellion. They exist in a state of prelapsarian innocence. Like an angel who has chosen good, they cannot choose evil, not because they are strong, but because the mechanism of rebellion is absent. In this specific esoteric sense, you are correct. The human without the will to power is less offensive to the divine order than the human with a strong, rebellious will. They are transparent to the light of God, much like an angel. 3. The counter-argument, the descent into the instinctual this world. However, we must distinguish between transcending the will and lacking the will. This is where the theological counterweight crushes the angel theory. In the great chain of being, the hierarchy is 1 God, 2 angels, 3 humans, 4 animals. If you remove free will or willpower from a human, they do not ascend to level 2, they descend to level 4. The role of intellect. Angels are defined by intellect. They know God directly. A human who lacks willpower is often governed by the body, hunger, fatigue, dopamine, fear. To be ruled by the body is the definition of the bestial, not the angelic. The angel is spirit governing itself. The will-less human is matter governing spirit. Therefore, a person with no willpower is arguably the furthest thing from an angel. An angel is a being of maximum will applied to a single purpose. A person with no willpower is a being of zero will, drifted by the currents of their environment. The Luciferian paradox. Why the wedge is necessary. Ultimately, the wedge between angels and humans is actually a bridge between humans and God. 12/25/25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 9:10. The reason humans cause such a stir in the heavenly host is that our free will allows for a type of love that angels cannot replicate, redemptive love. An angel loves God because it knows God's glory is a fact. It cannot deny it. A human loves God despite not seeing it, and despite the temptation to do otherwise. This requires willpower. It requires the strength to deny the body for the sake of the spirit. If you take away a human's willpower, you remove the possibility of sin, yes, but you also remove the possibility of virtue. You create a harmless entity, but not a holy one. You create a statue, not a saint. Conclusion: the passive versus the active angel. To synthesize your idea with academic theology, we must create a distinction. 1. If angelic means sinless, then yes, the will-less human is angelic. They are incapable of the pride that turned Lucifer into Satan. They are innocent vessels, unwedged from the divine flow. 2. If angelic means agent of light, then no. An angel is a warrior of the divine will. They require immense power and intent. A human without willpower is a pacifist by necessity, not by choice. Final thesis: the wedge is the dignity of risk. The angels were scandalized that God would trust a biological creature with the dangerous weapon of will. A human who lacks that will has effectively disarmed themselves. They may be safe and they may be pure, but they have forfeited the specific image of God that made the angels jealous in the first place. They cease to be rivals to the angels, becoming instead their wards. 12/25/25, 10:11 p.m. Google Gemini 10:10.